box. So at this point, you should have made your bioplastic. And I think you all saw that it was, not kind of what you were expecting, but it needs to dry for a couple of days and then it will harden. Okay. And it'll be more like plastic, like you're used to. But what is bioplastic? Okay. Bioplastic is a biodegradable material that comes from renewable sources. Okay. So what is biodegradable? Well, biodegradable means that it's capable of being decomposed by bacteria or other living organisms. So our plastic could actually go into compost and be decomposed just like regular food. Okay. Some people compost their food because it becomes good fertilizer for their crops, for their gardens, that kind of thing. Okay. A renewable source is a resource that cannot be depleted when used. So the current plastics are made out of petroleum, and petroleum is a fossil fuel. And as you know, fossil fuels are starting to become less and less, right? We may not run out of petroleum during our lifetime, but it's possible it could be during your children's lifetime. Okay. So renewable sources that cannot be depleted when used. So for example, plant-based materials like water, flour, starch, or things that you could do with solar, right? Because solar is a renewable source and the sun is not going to run out for billions of years. Okay. So advantages of using bioplastic. Well, one, it reduces your carbon footprint. Okay. What that means is that it reduces the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Okay. They provide energy savings in production. So when they're making petroleum plastic, there's a lot of heating and other types of energy that are needed to create that plastic. Whereas what we did yesterday was minimal heat, and the materials were all like food type items. They don't involve the consumption of non-renewable raw materials. Again, they don't use petroleum. Their production reduces non-biodegradable waste that contaminates the environment. Okay, so the bottles we have now, if you just throw them out onto the ground or whatever, after 1,000 years, it's still probably going to look pretty close to this. Okay, well, maybe not 1,000, but 100 years, it'll probably still look like this. Okay, whereas the bottle or the plastic that we made, after 100 years, it will probably look like this, where it's just a bunch of powder in the ground, which is what the elements are. They do not contain additives that are harmful to health. Again, the plastics companies use things like phthalates and bisphenol. And those are two things that if they get into our water supply, they're dangerous to basically all the animals. Okay. They do not change the flavor or scent of the food contained. Have you ever drank water that sat in a bottle for a couple of days? It's got kind of a off taste. These bottles, it can sit for a couple of days, and because the bottles are made out of food, right, it's not going to take away from that nice fresh taste of water. Okay. Bioplastics are made from starches and plant-based additives, which are healthier for humans. And petroleum-based plastics take more than 1,000 years to decompose. So to go from a plastic bottle to what you see here takes about 1,000 years, whereas bioplastic doesn't take, like, it might take 10 years. Okay. All right. Some disadvantages of bioplastic is that the bioplastics are generally not cost competitive compared to the oil-based ones, right? The oil-based ones have been around for such a long time that we know how to do it, right? So it's not going to cost as much because we know how to do it. Bioplastics haven't been around very long, so it's going to cost more to make it until we get to the point where it's like, oh, we can do this, you know. So it's going to take some time. So they're generally about 2 times more expensive. There's a concern that bioplastics based on crops like corn could harm the food supplies. Yes, that is a concern, but they would only require 3% of the world's cultivated acreage, right? That's not very much. So it's really not going to impact our food supply chain that much. Crop-based bioplastics require fertile land, water, fertilizers, and are reliant on weather conditions. Aren't most foods? Okay. Some bioplastics have a shorter lifetime than oil-based plastics due to weaker mechanical properties. Yes, because the bioplastic breaks down faster and it's better for the earth, it's not something that you would use, to store something for, 10 or 15 years. And then being compostable and biodegradable sounds great, but many bioplastics must follow a specific disposal procedure and require industrial composting. Basically, what this person is, or what this disadvantage is saying, is that there are some specific disposal procedures when it comes to composting. And that's based on the EPA, right? It's regulated by the government. So that's just the government. Okay. All right. So you should know kind of what bioplastic is, what it's good for, what are some of the concerns that we have. Go Hawks.